Hi, Dr. Rob.
Tammy, how are you? I feel like I've seen a lot of you. We've been going to conferences and meeting at events. It's good to see you in our own home environments.
That's true. We have been in 3 states. Like in a week's time, we were California, Florida, and Missouri. Dr. Rob was presenting at all the conferences and on codependence, among others. He had a number of different topics. So it's been kind of a whirlwind, but yes, we were both home. And I'm going to be doing my dishes later. So,
Well, that's fine. We're in a good place.
yes.
So in case there are folks who don't know what we're here to do, we volunteer our time every week. I volunteer here and another spot online called intherooms.com. And every week I'm here at 5 o'clock California time on Monday nights with my colleague Tammy. And what we do is we simply answer questions about sex, love, and addiction. Whether it's, I view all of this, so I've been in the field, been in this work for a very long time, maybe about 25 years, lots of books and all of that stuff and treatment programs behind me. And I've come to see all of this, whether it's sex addiction or love addiction or at the other end, avoiding relationships or avoiding sexuality. All of these things really lie on a line, a continuum, which I would call intimacy disorders, because healthy people bond in pairs and families and communities, and those of us who struggle. And addiction is a big part of what covers up sometimes, I think, our struggle to have love and connection and relationship in a way that heals us. So we're here to talk about sex addiction, love addiction, porn addiction, what it's like to be involved with someone with those issues, and to answer questions because we've both had a fair amount of experience in the field. One quick thing, my dog may scratch at the door. And maybe I'll just open the door. That's what I'll do. Excuse me for a second. That way he can scratch, he can just do what he wants.
Well, and I'm going to make a quick announcement for those of you that have been waiting for the Old Lady Posse drop-in group. For those that you aren't familiar, we have drop-in groups where you can connect and you can have your camera on and see, like Rob and I can see each other. You can participate in a group. Again, not 12-step, not therapy. They're all moderated, so they're a safe space. But I had like 3 requests, again, like for updates on the Old Lady Posse, and I confirmed today. So I think next week, Tuesday, the plan is that next week, Tuesday at 8:30 in the morning Pacific time, so 11:30 in the morning Eastern time, there'll be an Old Lady Posse drop-in group. So that is coming. I also have a new one for professionals, betrayed partner professionals, that will be coming online. So there's more stuff. If you haven't already registered on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, I'd invite you to do so. And you can even add to your calendar the events that you'd like to participate in. Dr. David Fawcett does a webinar on Wednesday nights, but we have like Kristen Snowden is this week, Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning for a webinar doing healthy relationships. But next week, Eddie Caparucci, I almost stumbled over that. And then Troy Love is the following week. So I've got somebody every Wednesday that is doing those at 9:30 in the morning Pacific time. So there's a lot of stuff. There's great resources on that. If you haven't already registered, I'd invite you to do so.
And I want you to remind them, please, that no one is charged. What we have is a
Correct.
bunch of therapists who volunteer their time, like Tammy and I do here, to help people answer questions. And we've put together a community so that if you're an addict, you can have questions answered. If you're a partner, if you're a couple, and you can do it in various formats. This is something that we give away. So please take advantage of it. No one's going to sell you anything. No one's, all of that. Oh, by the way, Old Lady, so I just want to say, if anybody's new, and I know somebody's writing about the Old Lady thing, if I object to the word old lady, I mean, not just because I'm a man, but also because I wouldn't want to be called an old man. So let me just explain to anyone who's new that in the variety of groups that we run, some of the partners groups, the women's betrayal groups in particular, women who have like a 3-year-old home and a 5-year-old at home and their husband has just gone out and done whatever, or boyfriend, that's kind of a different experience than someone who's been married for 25 years and their kids have already grown and gone, but they've been, and they're just finding out at 58 or 62, that they've been violated emotionally, if not in other ways. So we've had requests to support both younger women who are in a different stage of life than women who are older. And so I won't call it the old ladies group, but
They
you can say
want
that,
it
I
to be
will.
called that. So, I mean, yeah, see, love the term old lady posse.
Old
So I'm
lady
telling you,
posse. Okay, well,
yes,
we'll call it the
it's
old lady
all it is. The
posse.
old lady posse. It is not, because I was going to put the mature women. Nope, old
No,
lady posse. So yeah,
no.
it came,
But just to say, and I know you guys want us to get to work, but we're not discriminating. It's just there really
no.
are two different groups, and people want to kind of be with this people who are dealing with they're dealing with, so
And this
that's what,
one, so this one will be a little different because they're looking to have accountability amongst themselves, where the others are just support. This will have a little different feel. I think there'll be
good.
some different connections with that. So we'll see. But I've got somebody that was like, "Yeah, I'm all in." So I was like, "Great."
Great.
So
Oh
Susan
wait, someone's
Anderson.
writing. I think the old ladies are all right.
Yes, we are owning old lady. Yes,
Okay.
so it's all good.
Well, I'm not owning old man, so feel
Well,
free.
it's
You can
all
own
good.
that for
I
me.
said I would sub in
Let's
on
get
that
to
one. So
work.
I know. All right. So So hi, Dr. Robin, Tammy. Thanks so much for your generosity in providing this resource. I'm writing because my friend's 16-year-old son, having encountered ongoing sexual trauma in his earlier years, is beginning to display some sexually compulsive behavior that is troubling and befuddling his family. My question is this: what are some of the best ways to support a young person who is just starting to display these behaviors?
That's a really great question and a really hard question. You hear my dog, don't you, Tammy?
Yes,
Sorry
I
about
heard
that.
dozer. So yeah.
All right. So, well, I think he's got a bird out there that's pleasing him. Um, you ask a great question, and I want to say it in a couple ways. It's a great question because, when we think of somebody who's really got problem sexual behaviors, 90% of the time we think of somebody who's certainly over 25. And what most people don't realize is that almost all almost all, a large number of sex offenders are carried out by adolescents. And most of those adolescents, not all, but most of them have trauma in their backgrounds, and they're acting out in various ways what happened to them, or however you want to look at that. So it's not at all unusual to have someone who's molested or abused or taken advantage of in anywhere from 2 to 16 to end up having trouble in early adulthood, or if it was younger, in adolescence. So what you're saying is not unusual. I think what you didn't say is as important as what you did say. And Tammy, I don't know if I got this, and stop chatting with those women. I need your help here.
I'm listening. I'm
I
listening.
know, but I need your help with something. So what I
Yes.
didn't see in this, because I can't look at the question, I don't have that particular question to see, but
It,
I
it's right at the
didn't hear,
top.
what I didn't hear was not on the top of mine. It's okay. What I didn't hear was, like what kinds of things, like for example, if the kid is masturbating a lot, or if the kid is maybe starting to have sex with his peers, that would be one thing. It would be different if, and I've certainly had, 16-year-olds tell me they touched their 5-year-old sister, so that would be a very different thing. Or maybe my 16-year-old is looking at really unusual and bizarre images online, not just plain old porn, that would be, So, and by the way, there's also being 16 and who you are, because, this kid could be just doing what a lot of other 16-year-olds do. They're sexting, they're texting, they're doing, and maybe that's unfamiliar to you. So anyway, there's so much context to this. I think getting a good, adolescent therapist involved is good, maybe a trauma therapist. If you're right, Tammy, if you're in the United States, we have a lot of referrals all over the US. We send,
and some international too. So,
and we don't get kickbacks for our referrals. But we just know good people who do good work. So I would write her. That's Tammy at Seeking Integrity. Otherwise, this is a therapy issue for sure. And if he's harmed someone, like someone younger, then it becomes like a Department of Children's Services issue. So there are many, many dynamics to this, but I will just say this. I want to just give all of you this little image about one of the things I struggle with in my world, which is if I show a group of therapists 2 images on a stage, and I show them a 32-year-old guy who's cheating on his wife and having affairs and just hit on the 21-year-old babysitter. And then I show the same group a 17-year-old boy who was molested when he was 7 and struggling with masturbation to porn. and I ask you guys, which one would you rather work with? Most of you will say, well, I'd rather work with a 16-year-old or 17, you know, I think I can relate to him or whatever. And what I always say to the audience is, don't you realize that that 16-year-old boy is the same person as that 31-year-old man 15 years later? Because the issues around intimacy, brokenness, sexuality, and all of the ways they get acted out are the same. You know, I know certainly most of the male clients I work with were acting out sexually in one way or another by their late teens. So how you deal with that, whole other set of circumstances.
And I really appreciate that answer, that there isn't an easy, oh, try this, you know, with this, and a lot more information is needed. But I appreciate that the parents aren't just, you know, turning, you know, a blind eye to it, that they're realizing that there's an issue and they're reaching out for some help. So yes,
And,
if I
I'll
can
tell
be,
you one
go
more
ahead.
thing. I'm sorry, Tammy.
That's all good.
Taking a child in for help with these issues at 16, Lord, I wish I'd had some help at 16. Half my clients who are 35 or 50 think, oh my God, if I just known how to get help with this. So your child has such an advantage, and their brain, male brains developed at 26. So his brain has a lot of time to compensate and react and respond to all of the work you're doing. So good for you. You're good parents. Do we have another question? Oh no. What happened? Hey, where'd you guys go? Hmm. Tammy needs to let me back in, I think. I dropped out and came back. Maybe we've just lost Tammy. Oh, I'm the host now. Well, hi everybody. I guess I'm the host now. For some reason we lost Tammy, so I'm going to jump in the Q&A, and Tammy's not here, so that's why you can't see her. You want to write questions in and I will start answering them. Yes, but she'll find her way back. That's the good news about all this stuff. So, but unfortunately it wiped our Q&A. So if you wouldn't mind, guys, I will, and I can see it and answer it. I just like working with Tammy. If you send me some of your questions, I will start answering them, and I'll text Tammy in the meantime. So start writing in some questions. I would appreciate that. What did she just say? Oh, yes, we are back in. I'm telling her, I am back in. I am, and I'm the host. Host now. I'm the host now. Okay, so I see a question. Let's answer this. Could you explain how fear drives addicts to lying? Can you explain how fear drives addicts lying and partners' imaginations as they react to disclosures? Well, those are sort of different questions, but let's start with how fear drives lying. Actually, even though sex addicts are pretty brazen, you know, we'll hit on somebody in the most uncomfortable of places. We will act out some way and behind it. I mean, we can do all kind of brazen things. When it comes to actually saying what we need and want, or taking the consequences in case your spouse haven't noticed, we're kind of a wimp. You know, we want to get away with what we want to get away with, but we never want to be in trouble, or basically we're little boys. If I could tell you what I've done for 25 years as a professional, I have helped grow boys into men, is what I've done. Only the boys I've been working with are 35 and 40 and 45 and 50. And what I mean by that in relationship to this question is somebody who isn't, someone who values their relationship more than they value how they're going to be perceived by their partner, or whether their partner is going to be angry. The person who values the relationship more, who has that maturity, is going to be honest. The person who's more afraid that someone's going to leave them, or they're going to get hurt, or, you know, who's basically struggling to man up in a very colloquial way, that person's going to lie because they're more afraid that that partner left or is going to leave them than they are willing to tell the truth. And on the other end, the question is kind of like this: why do partners of sex addicts and partners of addicts in general, why are they so terrified about what they're going to hear when they're told that they're going to get a history or an inventory or a disclosure. And as part of the work we do, we try to do a disclosure with partners, where partners who are going to be in it for the long haul get to hear, what the history has been. And part of doing treatment is leading people toward disclosure, because without disclosure, there's no intimacy. I can never be married to you or committed to you and know that I did all this stuff and know that you don't know I did all that stuff and think that we're going to move forward. It's just not going to work right. So we do disclosure. But as you can imagine, so why do partners worry so much about what they're going to hear? Because what happens if I'm married to you or committed to you, and you found out and you found out I lied, or I've been keeping significant secrets from you, not just like, I didn't pay the grocery bill, but like I'm cheating. What addicts often, especially sex addicts, don't understand is our partners look at us completely differently from that moment on for the rest of the relationship. From the moment they find out that we are lying about significant issues that matter to them, that matter to our family, the moment they find out that we don't have their back, but chose to do things that more were interesting to us than protected our families, once our partners realize that, the relationship will never be the same. And the primary issue in our relationships will be trust. Once you have broken the kind of naive, understandably beautiful trust that comes when you start a new relationship or get married or committed, once that's broken, it's like a broken plate. You can glue it back together, but it will never be the same. Your woman or man, your partner, whoever they are, will never be able to look at you and think, oh, they would never really deliberately hurt me. They would never deliberately let me down, which everybody would like to think about the person who loves them, except our partners already know that we absolutely would let them down, because we have many times in our behavior. And I don't know how to make you a panelist, Tammy. Hold on a second, Tammy needs help. So let me just finish this statement. So what happens when trust is lost, and this is what addicts often don't understand, is like I might say to my spouse, honey, I know I cheated on you. I know I was seeing prostitutes. I know I was looking at porn when I said I wasn't, but I've always come home on time. I've always paid the rent. I've always taken care of the kids. So you understand, spouse, that I'm trustworthy in every area, well, except of course cheating. But that's not how our spouses look at it. So the answer to your question about why do your partners' imaginations go wild once they even find out that we've been cheating is very simple. It's because they don't trust us anymore. And they don't look at it like, oh, I know it was just a little bit of cheating, but in every other way he or she was honest. Our partners look at it like they don't believe anything we've ever said, like everything could be up for grabs, like if we could lie about this, then what else could we be lying about? And thus, when the string of trust is pulled out from under the relationship, a whole bunch of things fall. And our partners are left to imagine that if this could be true and they didn't know about it for a couple of years or a couple of decades, then what else is true that they don't know about? And therefore they don't trust us, and their imaginations go nuts with all the things they're afraid might be true because they can no longer trust what we say. Boy, was that a good answer to your question. Now let's see if I can get Tammy back. Let's see, 28 participants. I am the host. I see all of you. Oh, I don't see you guys, but maybe if Tammy's there. Oh, there she is. Allow to talk. More. Promote to panelist. There. Okay. How'd that go? Oh, not you, Ray. Sorry. That was about Tammy. So I know, Ray, whoever you are, you don't really want to be there, but hey, Tammy, talk to us.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. What do we do now?
Oh, there you go.
What do we do now?
So I don't need to be on screen. Well, let's see. You've unmuted me, but I don't know if I can see all the questions. So yes, I can.
Okay, well, I don't know how to make Ray. I brought poor Ray up there.
So where you just made him panelist, you can unmake him a panelist. So
like I have to find him first. Hold on.
Yes.
It could be a woman too, by the way. Sorry, guys.
I think my internet went out. I'm on my personal hotspot for my phone, but I think my internet just completely went out, so I
Yeah, that's
apologize.
okay.
But
You look beautiful with your doggy. Okay, well, why don't we just continue answering questions? I answered some while you were gone.
okay, that works. You can hear me. Did you
Ooh,
answer
look
the
what I
top
can do.
one?
Hold on a second. I think I can do something with you, Tammy.
Did you answer? I've heard
Try
about.
that. So seeking integrity
Oh, you
residential.
just made the
Oh,
residence
that's,
co-host.
no, I don't
So
want
yeah,
to do
don't
that.
do that.
Sorry.
Yeah. So just leave me alone. So just as long as you've got everybody else not a panelist, I'll read you the questions. It's all
Okay,
good.
go.
I apologize. So I've heard what you said about not telling the children. Did you do that one?
We did,
If they
I
are
answered
adult
that.
children?
Go ahead. This one is done. Now you're current.
Okay. So
What are one or two things is the question.
what I heard is I have heard what you said about not telling the children, even if they're adult
Okay, I have
children.
questions before that. What are one or
Well,
two things, important
all
things
I
you
see
learned
is
at conferences
explain.
that you think would help us?
Okay,
You see
yours are
that?
in a different order than mine. And no,
Just
I
look at the
don't.
timestamps. But anyway, what can you ask that question? Because I don't understand it. What are,
I can't see that one. So,
oh, okay. What are one or two important things you learned at conferences that you think would help us? And then it says, who watched
oh,
this? Oh, those of us who watched this. Tammy, you were at conferences, so can you also weigh in? I would
I would
appreciate
be
that.
happy to, because yes,
Um,
because we probably learned different things. Because we were at different. So Dr. Rob at those conferences is mostly presenting. So just want to give you that perspective, and I'm mostly talking. Hi.
Hi, we're trying to listen to you. Are you talking?
Well, I was, but yeah, yes. So I said we do things differently when we're at, because you're mostly presenting and I'm mostly connecting with other people. So it's not, we're engaged in different ways. So our perspective will be different is what I'm saying. So when you're
Yes.
presenting, what you're going to learn are when people are coming up to you and talking to you and sharing about how they're connecting. So as I mentioned with the conferences, prodependence was a main topic for him. And then, so you can talk a little bit about that. Why don't you talk about that first and what you learned, and then I'll share what I learned. So.
Okay, well, there's a lot there. What I learned at conferences, well, really a part of it is prodependence. Some of you know, some of you don't, but I wrote a book, my last book last year, which was really just a new take on how to support families and partners of addicts and other troubled people. And it's a very different, quite radical, I would say 180-degree view from codependency. It's just a very, very different take on how to be more supportive, I think more empathic, more supportive. And so what I learned out there were two things. One, I learned that there's a huge demand for a new way of looking at families and partners, and that almost everyone I talked to said that they've been waiting for some model to come along other than codependency for years, and they're really glad for this one, and they can see the application and where can they get started. That was definitely one of the things I heard, and that's really exciting. I heard something else, which is also related to prodependence. Prodependence is a book about families and partners of addicts. And the other thing was that someone asked me, how does prodependence, the whole concept, well, you know what, Tammy, I don't want to talk about that. What else did I learn on the road? That's too long to explain. I'll say that in a prodependent room. I also, you know what I learned? I learned that I have a lot of friends. There are people I've known for 20 years, 15 years, 25 years, and we just embrace like we just met. And whether I'm in Australia or New York or Florida, I feel like I know people all over the place because I've been a kind of a touring rock band doing trainings for therapists for the last 6 or 8 years. So I've just met people all over the world, and it's such a delight to see them and be remembered by them, and that they've learned something that they still carry from what I've said. That's incredibly, cool.
And
That's
likewise, there were a number of people that I saw, and it was unexpected. I didn't know who was going to be at what conferences, and so one of them, our mutual friend from Israel, happened to be there, and we both had the opportunity to connect with her, and there were a number of people, so we were grateful for that. I think the thing that always reaffirms there are in this profession that really do want to do good work and care, that they are committed to helping people. And so I think the people that are at conferences and continuing their education and diving in, you know, I applaud that. You know, rather than going, well, I've been doing this work for 30 years and I don't need to learn anything. So I think that's, you know, very affirming. So, okay.
I'll say one more thing too. I think I learned a little bit more about porn addiction because I'm writing about it and I'm teaching about it, and that's actually what I went to Australia to talk about. And I have a book coming out about porn addiction, and we're opening a porn addiction program. And I think all of those things. And by the way, if any of you watch The Doctors, I think I'm going to be on The Doctors talking about porn addiction, and sometime soon I'll let you know. But notice how casually I say, oh yeah, I'm going to be on TV. But you know, it's a nice thing. And I do know, but anyway, what I learned was really how little we really do know about the young people who are struggling with porn, how little we know why they're struggling with it individually and what courses of treatment might be needed for them and how we can best understand them. And I learned that there's just a huge population of young men and women out there who have been struggling with porn since they were 11 and now they're 23, or they started when they were 9 and now they're, you know, 19 or whatever it is. And they don't have answers, and we haven't gotten good enough at getting, even knowing the questions to ask them, no less the answers. And that's one of the reasons I'm writing about them. Because there are thousands of them, thousands and thousands of young people trying to figure out their problem with porn. And so I'm trying to give them some answers. Anyway, that was my take.
Okay, so I only have one question. It's an excellent
Hey, Tammy, you're coming
question.
through really badly. So I don't think it's really that helpful for you to ask these questions because you come through
Campus
I like
529, so I'm
that.
going to read that. But okay, then
So I think I
I
should
will
just
try to
do
work on
this.
my, please, I'm sorry. I apologize, but have a good rest of your meeting.
We love you, Tammy.
Bye.
We're going to get these questions answered. So someone said, this is an addict. And they said, hi guys, I try to keep up the 3-second rule, which I will explain. But sometimes when I look at a woman or skin or cleavage, I have a strange feeling of peace, which makes me want to keep staring. Oh, well, I think that's very human. Why does staring feel so nice and peaceful? As a side note, every time I visit a place like LA, I end up going home depressed. Okay, so I have to say, of all the things you said there, that is a little bit of a non sequitur. But I'll respond to that one. I've lived in Los Angeles since 1985. I grew up on the East Coast. The key to any large city is to know people who live there. And if you spend time with friends and they're taking you around to places that they know and they love, you will learn to love a place. And if you go with a guidebook and a map, you know, basically you're not going to find love exploring new places. What? I think it's Tammy.
I think my Wi-Fi is back.
Okay, welcome back. So would you like to read Marie's question?
It still isn't showing me any questions.
Oh, that's
so
not the one. All right, so I'll read this question. So anyway, let me go back to the question I was just being asked. So I want to take out of the equation for this question about being comforted by looking at things that are sexual. When I'm looking at, how do I say that? I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain what I want to say. I think we grow up looking at things like our mom's face, and that makes us feel peace and happiness. We might look at our dad's hands and we see peace and happiness. We might, over time, that might become the face of a lover or a friend. But addicts in particular, and those of us who have trauma in our backgrounds, have learned to sexualize a lot of our feelings. So the feeling of being comforted, for example, if you learned at a young age that sexual stimulation on your own or with someone else, or that would comfort you, well, then I can understand why looking at someone sexually would feel comforting. In other words, what I'm saying is, I don't think this is new for you. I think this is some kind of skill that you developed early to soothe yourself by kind of looking at that one thing that would make you feel better. And then when sexuality gets added to it, it's even a little bit more exciting and fun. But people who learn to soothe themselves with sexuality will do that all their lives. And, you know, when I'm feeling upset, I will find myself looking at body parts on the street, and boy, do I feel better. A more clinical way to say it is that when we look at someone we're attracted to, we dissociate a little. we leave ourselves and we kind of space out and we go over there and we're kind of hovering over there in our heads looking at them. And when we get to space out like that, we literally leave ourselves. We're not in our own problems. We're not in our own issues. We're over there looking at those breasts. And that feels really peaceful because that's a nice, warm and comforting place to be, not right here in the middle of my problems. So it is a psychological mechanism and it's learned. And it's nice to look at breasts or body part. I mean, there's a natural piece to this too, but not in the way that we use it. If you know you're in this room for a reason.
I can't see the question, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. I want to answer a question that I want to make up.
I want the 529 one.
Tammy, oh, you have a question?
The one, I could. Go ahead. I can't ask it because when I came back in, I lost it. Somehow it doesn't let me. So,
right.
But I thought
I'm going to go all the way back to, first of all, I want to answer a question that I'm going to make up, which is something I just want to say also to the porn people who may be listening. One of the things that I've really learned about porn is there are a lot of misconceptions in people's minds about it. And I'm not talking about good or bad or right or wrong or feminism. I'm just talking about what it does to you when you watch it. And there are some people who will watch porn and find themselves turned on by things that they didn't expect. They like S&M. They like looking at same-sex sex, stuff like that. Or they like seeing something transgender. Maybe it never occurred to them that might ever have this interest. And then there it is. They saw it in porn and they kind of interested in it. And then some of those folks will come to people like me and say, hey, I hate the fact that I'm interested in transgender women, or I hate the fact that I'm really turned on by sex, and I never was before I looked at the porn. And so there's this kind of misunderstanding out there that, well, if I just stop looking at the porn, then all that stuff will go away. If I just don't look at the porn, those things that came up when I was looking at the porn will go away. Because basically, the reason I'm interested in men now or transgender now or wherever is because I looked at too much of it and I just need to get away from it and I won't be aroused by that anymore. But that isn't really true. That's just not really true, because the way we work is this. Porn is two things for us. It is both excitatory or exciting, meaning, woo, that's exciting, but it's also revelatory, meaning it reveals things to us. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term repression or things being repressed, meaning there are parts of ourselves, believe it or not, that we don't know about. I might have some artistic skill that's been repressed because I never learned how to paint or tried. You can also have feelings or experiences or desires that are repressed. But when you're exposed to them, like if I never really knew, I kind of was turned on by leather, but I see people doing sex in leather on porn and all of a sudden I find that attractive, it probably means that all along there's been a little part of me that might have never run into this and never been interested in it, but since I did, now it kind of awoke a part of me that I didn't know was there. And some people get very upset because when they put the porn away, the thing that was a new arousal to them or an unexpected arousal to them in the porn is still arousing to them in real life. And they're upset that just abstaining hasn't gotten that arousal to go away. And that has to do with the part of porn that is revelatory, meaning porn can reveal parts of yourself to you that you did not know you had. And once it reveals them and you have this sexualized experience and connection to it inside of you, it probably isn't going to just go away. It probably will be a part of you that's been awakened that will stay with you. Now, I'm not saying that people who look at violent porn, for example, are, going to go out and do violent things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm more saying that more types of arousal, like whether you like men or women, or whether you like have a particular thing you like enjoying with sex, like a fetish, that those things can appear in porn and we can realize that we're attracted to them. Doesn't mean we have to go act them out in the real world, but just because something turns you on with porn, it disturbs you, doesn't mean it's going to go away when you stop looking at the porn. And even if you look at disturbing images in porn, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means your brain is connected some way up to make that sexual, and whoops, maybe it just was. Don't hate yourself about it. Worry about what you do in the world and how you treat people, or if porn, the amount of time you're involved with porn is taking over your life. But worry a little bit less about what the casual thing is that might have turned you on, because if it's in you, it was there all along. And if it wasn't, it wasn't. And let me just give you one example of this. Many of you may know that I'm homosexual. I am married to a man, and my primary attraction is men. And I had a client not that long ago who said to me at our treatment program at Seeking Integrity, he said, you know, I really am turned on by I really got turned on by transgender women in porn for a number of years. And now I just really hate myself. It's like an addiction. All I want to do is be with transgender women, and I hate myself for it. And, you know, hating himself for something that he discovered about himself that he's now interested in is really, you know, I mean, I don't mean to be minimizing, but if I discovered that I liked chocolate cake and never knew it, I probably would, in sparing doses, occasionally engage in you know, and I wouldn't hate myself for it. So if you just discover that something is arousing to you sexually, even if it was unexpected, unless you're hurting someone else or yourself in the real world, be a little kind with yourself. That's what I want to say. That's a podcast, Tammy.
I know. I was just thinking that. I was like, or part of, yes, more will be, it will come out in different
Well, I have a
ways.
6-hour lecture due on porn next week, so.
There you go.
Okay.
So keep going.
I'm doing the questions, okay.
Yeah, I can only see.
Okay, so this is long. I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying male or female or who this is for your privacy. Dear Tammy and Rob, I have heard what you said about not telling children, even if they are adult children. And I think she's talking about cheating between her and her husband or whatever. I have a friend whose husband has served time for his sex addiction. Then I'm going to assume that that's offending because sex addicts don't serve time, because sex addicts don't cross the line into offending. Then you're a sex offender. That means with addictive qualities. But anyway, I think I have a friend whose husband has served time for sexual offenses. In her children's school, some of the adults know generally what has happened, and it is public record. That's what happens. With this in mind, one of the adult parents informed her own child of what had occurred with my friend's husband, okay? So one of the parents at school told their child about her friend's husband who'd gone to prison for sexual behavior. Let me finish reading. She's concerned now about what to do because he's 7 years old. So she feels that she is lying to her child in attempting to keep him safe. He's now very confused. Oh, this must be his son. Let's try that again. With this in mind, one of the adult parents informed her own child of what had happened with dad. That's what she's saying. The mother told the 7-year-old that dad is a sex offender. That's what happened. This was shared at her child's school. She's concerned now about what to do. He's 7 years old. She feels like she's lying to her child to keep him safe. He is now very confused because he knows daddy was gone for some time and that daddy did something wrong. Just to add, this child was another 7-year-old who also shared the information to her son at the school. Okay, I don't need to say more. These are for, just in terms of this child, this is a therapy issue. I mean, this is what child therapists are for. When a child has a trauma or a crisis that is outside their normal experience of a 7-year-old, like finding out that daddy did something wrong and daddy went to jail, especially why, this is what therapists are for. This is why we go to graduate school. And I really mean that without being sarcastic. I would not take this issue on yourself. I would absolutely advise you or the parent, whoever it is, to get in family therapy. And by the way, kids, you may think that 7-year-olds are not affected by things like that. They are deeply. And they may not be able to talk about it like you and I are talking about it, but a child therapist, they'll use things like sand trays with different kinds of toys to represent mom and dad. And they have lots of ways of getting children through play to talk about their experiences. And that's what child therapy is, by the way. It's not sitting and talking to a child. I mean, it is a little bit, but a lot of it is talking through their imagination and through play. And that's how a lot of things get worked out. It can sound like a mystery, but for the kids get it. And so, you know, I would find a good child therapist. The other thing I want to say is, I think this is a really good example of how out of control things can get. I don't have to read much more of this story. I'm worried about what this 7-year-old has to deal with the mothers of the other 7-year-olds. And is this kid ever going to be invited to a sleepover or a party or anything? You know, there's a story, not a story, there's a book by Brené Brown. I think it's The Daring Way, I think, but it might be the one before that, which I don't remember the name of at the moment. But anyway, Dr. Brown writes about something that I really relate to, which is I remember being a little kid whose mom was mentally ill. And my neighbors knew that my mom was house where mom got taken away by the ambulance, and where they knew that. And you know, when I grew up, nobody wanted other kids to come over and play at my house because I had the crazy mom. And this often happens like in an alcoholic home, or in my case, the home of a mentally ill person, where the children suffer because parents become afraid of their own children being exposed to this person, no less the parents. And so I think this is, I mean, in situations like this, I've seen kids have to go to other schools, not because, you know, but because it's something that kid's going to carry in that school for 12 years. You know, your dad's a sex offender. So anyway, this is a very complex situation, but this is what family therapy was made for. And if you need family therapists and child therapists, again, write Tammy at Seeking Integrity. I'm sure she can refer someone, or at least give you some ideas in your state how to find some help. Tammy, I want to take a moment out to do a little advertising. So would you mind talking a little bit about our podcasts and maybe some of what we do in Seeking Integrity, since you don't have questions to ask?
Well, I have two now, but yes, but I know there's behind others. So yeah, the podcast series, Sex, Love, and Addiction is, I just saw more statistics, and there's over 215,000 unique downloads on the series. So it's well received. He's got great guests. We're working on scheduling more great guests. So if you haven't plugged into that, please do. I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, if you sign up on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, you'll receive notifications and other pertinent information. The Seeking Integrity Los Angeles treatment program is amazing. Dr. Rob and Dr. David Fawcett, who also has a webinar on the site, have done an amazing job with a comprehensive curriculum to really help men with sex addiction, intimacy disorders, or those with co-occurring sex addiction and chemical dependency heal. That's all we do. We're not a 100-bed facility treating everything under the sun. It's just this, but they do it great. And then Paul Hartman runs couples workshops once a month. It starts on a Friday afternoon and ends on a Sunday afternoon. He's a skilled clinician, has been doing couples workshops for a long time. He also has a men's 3-day kind of a jumpstart intensive workshop. You know, if you struggle with some relapse, or you're just kind of stuck in recovery and you just need a little help, that's a great fit. That's actually coming up this weekend, one, and again, monthly. So reach out to me. I'm happy to give you more information. So
we tried to create some workshops because, well, for a couple of reasons. Number one, not everyone can come to treatment, but people want to do work. Second of all, couples in particular, I think, really want some space to work. We also realized that in doing our treatment program, that a great way to end it is to do couples work and to have a couple there for the weekend. So, and people like workshops. So we're doing that stuff. But anyway, that's Seeking Integrity.
Answer the question from 539 or 529 that is about, I quit drinking and I thought my sex addiction issues would go away.
Okay, hold on. I have to answer one from 521, and then I will answer 529.
Okay, thank you.
My husband and I are working toward rebuilding our relationship after serial infidelity on his part. We would like to be fully transparent with passwords and electronic devices. Do you recommend that? I recommend it 100%. And let me just make a short statement. Because actually, it's really funny. I mean, it's not funny, but I've actually, Tam, I don't know if you know this, like Bustle or Vanity Fair or one of those magazines online interviewed me with this very question. And the question was, when do you think a spouse, or do you think a spouse or a partner should have access to her husband or his wives or whatever it is, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever you are, and on the whole gender fluid spectrum? Should your partner have access to your passwords and everything? And that was the question. And my answer was, and is still today, if you have not violated your partner's trust and your partner has not violated your trust, then you each have a right to a private life. And if you want to chat with friends and you want to say, you know, maybe you want to complain about what's going on in your marriage sometimes, I don't think your partner has to see that. You get to have a private life. However, if you've been caught lying or cheating or breaking the rules, then all bets are off, because now you want to restore trust, and you will not restore trust by saying, I'm not going to let you have access to that. Trust is restored by your partner by the partner who is who's been cheated on, having access to whatever they want, whenever they want, because that's how trust is rebuilt, with really full transparency. So, and by the way, I don't see any reason why, if you're a woman and this is a man and he's cheated on you, I don't see any reason for him to have access to all of your PIN codes and stuff, because unless you've been lying and cheating, and I don't think it's necessary. The transparency is necessary on his side, not yours. You can choose what you want to share. He has an obligation because he is one down in the relationship. He's lied to you. And by the way, I wrote a book about this called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. And it is a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. And I kick men's butts, and men hate this book, and women love this book, because they read Out of the Doghouse and they say, yeah, that's how I feel, go do this. And then they will throw it at you. So that's why I wrote it, so women would throw it at us.
But actually, some men say, I'm reading this, and they do find it helpful, because you're very practical. Like, you do this, and you give very, very specific guidelines on here's how to rebuild trust. And if they're committed to doing it, they find it to be a useful guide. So they don't all hate it. So
no, that I think that the men are committed to healing their relationships, as much as they don't like having to suit up and show up with humility to the person they've cheated on. They get the value of it, and they learn something from the process. But it can also be very revelatory, revealing, because I've heard stories about, my husband read this 3 times and he doesn't seem to care how I feel. And that would be more a statement on who he is than the book I wrote. Anyway, there's a question here this was at 5:28, but you'll like this. This is a great question. What exactly is an emotional affair, non-sexual? And how does a lover or sex addict know that he or she is actually in one? Tammy, can you answer that as if from an alcohol perspective, or do you have a perspective? Because that just seems like it. I want to kind of make fun with that. Go ahead, you go.
So read it to me again, because I can't see it. So
what exactly is an emotional affair, quotes, non-sexual? And how does a lover sex addict actually know that he or she is in an emotional affair?
My first thought is, if I am, so I guess it depends. If I have feelings for someone and I'm a single person and they're a single person, and, we just don't do anything about it, I guess that, that would be an emotional affair. However, I'm a married woman. If I start having, all of my,
Thoughts.
Oh, he's so wonderful. Oh, all I can think about, like you said, thoughts, is on this person. And that would be an emotional affair, even if I'm not engaging in any physical inappropriate behavior, in my opinion, inappropriate behavior within the relationship guidelines of my marriage, but I'm still like, I'm distant, I'm gone, because I'm not paying any attention to what's going on in my life. And I've now fixated on this other person and how they're going to be, Prince Charming and the most wonderful, and everything's going to be great. Not that it will be, but
you mean me,
my
Prince
fantasy.
Charming?
I'm sorry.
You mean me, Prince Valiant, Prince
Yes,
Charming.
you are.
Only
So
not
on your white horse. Yeah.
So I have a more concrete definition.
Yes.
Affair, to me, an affair implies that you're in one relationship and there may be something going on with someone else, right? An affair isn't, I assume you're single. At least that's how I'm going to take it. An affair has something to do with you're in a relationship and you might be having an affair with another person. That's how I'm going to take this question. Is that reasonable, Tammy?
Yes, I think, yeah, that's a fair
so here,
description.
if I was in a relationship with you and you were meeting with someone, chatting with someone, spending time with them, whatever, and you said to me, how would I know? And I said to you, how would I know? You said to me, never mind. You asked me this question. Here's the answer. If I, as your spouse, husband, wife, whatever it is, could see all of your conversations, everything you've written back and forth, and every way you've treated each other, touched each other, would I be upset? In other words, do you have any action or word, behavior, in essence, words or behavior, that you have expressed with this person that would make you uncomfortable if your partner saw? What your thoughts are, You can think all the affair thoughts you want, perfectly fine, up to you. But when you start saying things like, I want to tell you something about my marriage that you don't know, or I'm so unhappy in my marriage, or my wife doesn't really have much sex with me, or things that you wouldn't want your spouse to hear you saying, or I really want to have sex with you, stuff like that, then you're having an affair. Because by definition, our dogs are barking at each other, aren't they, Tammy?
I think so. I hear both of them, so sorry.
So to me, an affair is the breaking of trust in a primary relationship. That's what cheating is. So the minute you do something that your partner would not feel comfortable with, especially given your background and theirs, you're cheating. And so I don't know when the affair begins, but I know when you start keeping secrets from your partner, you're cheating. How's that?
I think that was excellent.
I don't think they're going to like that answer. I just want you to know. Just one more thing. Oh, I love this. Tammy, you have to let me say this, because this is like such a great recovery thing. So I learned from an early woman that I did treatment with, two things. I learned two things from this woman. One, never do a mixed sex addiction group with women and men. And I learned that from her. And this was like in the 90s. And the other thing I learned from her is that a real wisdom that this woman taught me about recovery from addiction. She said, you know, it's a funny thing. When I feel like doing most things, going to the bathroom, going to work, running an errand, talking to friends, I don't usually question it. I just think about when or how, but I don't say, gee, is that a good idea for me to do that? But when I'm in an addictive mode or I'm thinking addictively, I'm also often bargaining with myself about, well, I'd like to do this, but maybe it's not a good idea. That's something to pay attention to. And if you find yourself bargaining about whether something is good for you to do or not, go talk to someone else and ask them, and don't just go and do it. That will help solve a whole bunch of problems. Thank you, Tim.
And I agree. And I find that with if I've got some little niggling of like, I should talk to somebody, like I know that I need to talk to somebody and think it through, because so I love that answer. So now will you do my question, please?
Yes, ma'am.
It's not my question, but I loved it. So how's that?
Well, this is 529.
I believe that.
Hi. I thought my sex and love addiction would be adequately addressed in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I've worked the steps. I did the sex inventory. And I continue to act out sexually despite not drinking anymore. I really thought AA and the steps in AA would be enough to address sex and love addiction too. I've been told, though, I need to go to SLAA or maybe SAA. Any feedback, and AA, any feedback. I thought if I'd sobered up, I'd quit acting out. Not the case. Do you want me to answer?
That's a really important question, because this happens all the time. So
a couple of things. I mean, there's so many things here, but let me just say a couple of different things. First of all, I would ask you just to think about it, and it may take time in your inventories and stuff, which problem came first? Your confusion around your sexuality, whatever way that might have presented when you were younger, or your alcoholism? Because I often find that people had problems with intimacy, sexuality, trauma earlier in life, 9, 10, 4, 7, and it showed up with their drinking as a way to bury all of that. But then when they stopped drinking or using, they found a whole bunch of stuff in behavior that was sexual or romantic that they didn't like, but that really they were unable to change or didn't know how to change. And I think what you say in this, we have a phrase in recovery about being happy, joyous, and free. And that the goal of all of the work we're trying to do in this kind of selfish program is so that we can be happy, joyous, and free. That's part of the thing. And so if you go to all the trouble to get sober from drugs and alcohol, and then you find yourself not happy, not joyous, and not free because you're doing crazy stuff with sex, then obviously you need to address it. Now, here's something that my supervisor taught me. Here's the phrase that my supervisor taught me in 1989 to give to you and people who ask this question, and it's not the answer you want. And you'll get this as an AA person. Our chips don't transfer. It doesn't matter how long you've been in AA. It doesn't matter how much work you've done as a recovering person, drugs and alcohol. It matters in terms of, you know that process, you trust that process, you understand that process. But the really crappy thing about it is that you are a newcomer. And you have to accept that and own that fully, that this is an area in which you are powerless and you cannot figure it out and you need help. And the help of AA is not going to guide you in this particular area. AA, maybe, I think if you really worked a great AA program, you might be able to stop acting out sexually, maybe. But I don't think you'll learn the tools to heal your life. And I think you have to be sitting with other people who struggle with intimacy and sexuality and lying to themselves and acting out. And you kind of have to sit in the poop for a while. I did that for you, Tammy. You have to sit in the poop for a while with the same people of the same poop as you. And that's how you get better. Now, I will say that people who've been in AA and other programs, I think they move faster. I think they get through it, you know, through the steps and the, you know, they don't struggle with, do I really need a sponsor? You know, you get it. You got to get in there, go to work, get to some S meetings and start your recovery. And at some point, I do believe that they will fuse for you. The recovery, you'll just need to go to one place. You know, I go to a certain meeting once a week. That's good enough for me. Tammy might do whatever she does. You don't necessarily have to go to everything in the world, but in the beginning, you got to soak up this stuff and you got to soak it up at the source. And I thank goodness and congratulations on your AA sobriety. And I'm really glad that it brought you to the point where you can now grow around this. Because maybe now you can have love and relationship and home and family and all the really good stuff.
And I wanted to bring that up because it isn't just about the 12-step meetings, but this is also about treatment, because we hear this all the time that somebody's going to go off to a treatment center for alcohol and drug addiction, and they aren't qualified to treat the co-occurring.
Well, they only get half the problem solved.
Yeah. And so then they get out of treatment and it's still the same. It's still the same hamster wheel with this. And I agree. I can't be happy, joyous, and free if I'm acting out in an addictive way or compulsive way in some form, whether it's eating or shopping or, you know, whatever it is. If I'm not living in integrity, which is, I love the name of the company, Seeking Integrity, because that's, you know, that's the path I want to be on. It's still going to be a bump in the road. And that's what I heard in that question is like, how can this possibly be? You know, I should be able to do it. And I remember I had the same shame, and I've shared before, you know, I had an eating disorder and I had to deal with that in recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. And it was like, how can I not figure this out? And I had this huge amount of shame about that. And I just didn't have the tools, and I needed to get them. And I did, you know, and gratefully that I'm in recovery, you know, all the way around now. So I wanted to be encouraging about that, but I want to make it clear that in my personal opinion and my experience, if you just go address the alcohol and chemical dependency, the sex stuff isn't going to go away. You know, it's not just going to magically go away.
And I would add to that, that this is the reason, and now I can say this legitimate, this is the reason that we open Seeking Integrity people, I have people who stop drinking and using, and all of a sudden, like they had a great sex life, they stopped drinking and using, now they don't want to have sex at all. They've stopped, and they don't want to date, they don't want to have sex. I work with other people who are, you know, just out of their minds with their sexual behavior, but it's really combined with drugs and alcohol, or they're ashamed of their sexual behavior. You know, there is an intersection here between addiction and intimacy. We already, I believe, know this as a profession, that intimacy in part, that addiction as a whole is in part an intimacy disorder, a failure of dependency. So if you're in recovery and your life isn't working, probably this whole area of intimacy and relationships and sexuality, you may find out that that's what you drank over in the first place. I hear that a lot. Anyway, thank you, Tammy, for your time. Sorry about the challenges, guys.
Yeah, sorry. And sorry for the questions that we aren't getting to.
Yeah, me too. But don't, I'm on intherooms.com on this Friday. Yeah.
And Kristen Snowden is at 9:30 a.m. on healthy relationships. So all your questions, you know, can convert over to that one, 9:30 a.m. Wednesday morning. And Dr. David is on 5 p.m. on Wednesday as well. So there's more opportunities. Keep coming back. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Bye for now.
Bye.